Hey everybody, so I wanted to do this quick tip on how to set up Failsafe properly, and this should apply to Betaflight, Cleanflight, at least, and maybe other configurators. I've been flying for a couple months now, and I had some issues getting Failsafe to work properly. When I was shutting my transmitter off, the quad was shutting off immediately, but it wasn't triggering Failsafe. And I didn't understand why, but I did know that at least my quad was shutting off. So I was flying like that. But it's kind of, after a while I wanted to come back and revisit this because I really wanted Failsafe to operate. I wanted to have some separate parameters going on here, and I wanted to go through stage 1 and then stage 2 after some period of time. And what I've settled on for now is 1.5 seconds. So I wanted to give you this tip because there's a couple things you need to do with your transmitter and flight controller, and they need to be married together for this to work appropriately. The first thing you need to really do is, and in my situation, and this could vary for serial receivers, for receivers that communicate with a serial port, I'm not sure. I'm using a Spectrum DX6i, so I'm just an entry-level guy here, and I have a Redcon receiver, which is a DMSX protocol, which talks to the Spectrum transmitter here, and I'm communicating to my flight controller through the PPM connection. So what I figured out is that the first thing you need to do is you need to set your fail-safes on your receiver. So normally what they say to do on like an airplane or something of that nature is you get your transmitter all set up with the percent throws you want and your sub trims, and get that all ready to go. Obviously, you'd have to be bound to your receiver to even do that operation to begin with. So you have to bind to your receiver. Then after you get everything all set and ready to go, then you rebind to your receiver to set the fail-safes in the receiver. And what that does, and you can look in your instructions for how to bind and rebind. What that does is then, and you want to have all your buttons and sticks in your your fail-safe mode when you do that rebind. You want to have your throttle stick all the way down so that if your transmitter shuts off or if you have a loss of signal, your receiver is going to go to its fail-safe mode, which is throttle all the way down and the rest of the sticks centered. So your plane would, go to low throttle, the motor would shut off, presumably, and then just the controls would center and it would crash, I guess, but it wouldn't fly away. So in a quad, I would think you do the same thing, but you actually don't. The first thing you need to do is, if you can see on here, if I go to my receiver tab, I have my throttle stick going from 0.998, it changes up with the temperature a little bit, up to 2003 or 4. I actually need to do a fail-safe or a rebind with my receiver so that when I go to low throttle, this actually goes down as low as it possibly can. So in my Spectrum, I would change the throttle adjustment for the low end. Right now I'm, I think, 115% to come to the 998 number here. I set that all the way up to 125%. For the low end, and I made sure my stick was all the way down. Then I did my rebind. Okay, so now when I shut my receiver off, or my transmitter, I'm sorry, this number would go down to as low as it possibly can. At 980, it actually goes down to like 950 something. That's the first step, and then you're going to set this low end signal to be above that number. That's how it knows to even enter into failsafe. So if it receives a signal from any of your channels, doesn't need to be your throttle stick, it could be any channel, that's lower than this or higher than this value, and you can adjust it. That's what triggers stage 1 failsafe to enact. In stage 1, this is where you can set up what it's doing. So in stage 1, for me, I'm going to have it not hold the rich yaw. It's going to basically center all the controls. And for throttle, that would go to the low position. You can see here, and throttle goes to low for auto. Actually, in my scenario, I want to set that to hold, and I'll talk about that in a second. So I'm going to leave it for auto for now. And also, the other thing I wanted to do is, usually I'm trying to fly in air mode. I'm still working on it. But if I have it in air mode, I want it to go back to horizon mode or angle mode. So for me, that means a signal on auxiliary 2 of around 1850, and I can show you here in my modes. So you can see it around 1850. I'm in horizon mode, air mode's turned off, and my black box is turned off as well, but that's not consequential. So the quad will level. So if it lost a signal or the receiver shuts off, the first thing it's going to do is level the quad out. As of right now, as an auto, the throttle would go all the way to 0. So the quad would come down. The motors would still spin because I have the motor still spinning, but it's going to come down. The reason I have this auto for now is I wanted to show you, with my receiver on, if I go to low throttle stick here, I can only go down as far as 998. If I shut my transmitter off, so I'm going to just bring it up a little bit so you can see it. If I shut my transmitter off, you can see it goes down to the 980. And it actually goes further down than that. I've noticed that this number is going to go as low as whatever is set here in the failsafe. So if I drop this down to like 0, I could probably see how low that would actually go. Let me just do it real quick. I guess the lowest I can go is 750. If I go to receiver, you can see it goes down to 958. So that's by my transmitter. As soon as I shut off my transmitter, that it goes down to 958, or lost a signal or shut my transmitter down. My throttle input's going to give a signal 958, and that's because my receiver is entering it into its failsafe mode, which is centering all the control inputs, dropping all the way down to the lowest it can, which I set my low-end throttle throw to 125% when I did the bind, and then I didn't worry about the auxiliaries. And I'll talk about this in a second here. So that's part 1. I'll set this back to 980, save and bind. And then you can set these. I actually want this to be hold. I want it to actually hold the current throttle. And keep in mind, it's only going to do that for me for 1.5 seconds, which is fairly brief. I'm not a fast flyer. Like if I'm a race flyer, that might be down at like 0.5 seconds, but I'm not zooming around yet, so 1.5 seconds. Give me a little bit of time. The quad's not moving fast for me right now, trust me. It's going to self-level and so on and so forth. The other issue I had of, which I didn't even touch on yet, is why in the first place was it not entering into failsafe? Well, I've noticed initially, you can see my auxiliary 1 is my arm switch. I'm going to turn my transmitter back on. And my arm switch here, if I throw that, you can see I have my props off, of course. Goes up to 1996, something like that. And this arm is the 1006. Well, why it wasn't entering the failsafe for me before is because I had it bound with auxiliary to the back, which would be back here at the 1006. And what was happening is if I had a loss of signal or I shut my transmitter off, although the auxiliary was up when it would occur, as soon as the signal loss would occur, I would notice this would drop back and come back up. This would drop back to the 1006 and then come back up. And the reason it was coming back up is because I guess this was set to hold. However, for that microsecond, it was probably not even half, you could see it flop back and go back up again. It would go down and go back up. Well, what was that doing? I was triggering it to disarm, because you can see in my air mode, or my modes here, when it was going back to the receiver default, it was going back to here and then popping back up. Well, that instantaneously doing that would disarm the quad and drop out of the sky. So it wouldn't even get a chance to, and if your quad's disarmed, failsafe mode doesn't even trigger at all. It doesn't need to be. It's not armed. So that's why it was working all the last couple of months, because my receiver shut off. it would disarm my quad immediately and fly out of the sky, which is fail-safe to some extent. But it wasn't doing any of this stuff. It wasn't, leveling it quick. It wasn't waiting 1.5 seconds. So that's the revelation. It took me a little bit to figure that out. There's a couple things. You have to first make sure your percent throttle for the low end is set as high as it can be. Then do the rebind to your receiver so you can get that low enough transmission frequency here or pulse to trigger failsafe to even start, or you can use another channel. It doesn't matter. Seems like it's any of the channels. The next thing is you got to make sure your arm is actually set to the arm position, possibly. At least for my receiver, I did. And after that, then, for me, the reason I have 1.5 seconds is, if there's an intermittent, like if I go around the back of a tree and it just loses the signal for a split second, I don't want the quad to drop out of the sky. Just give me 1.5 seconds. I'm not moving fast behind that tree, trust me, right now. I might drop that down a little bit, but if it's an instantaneous loss of signal, I'd like to still, make an auto level, and I'll see like, ooh, I lost the signal because it started to auto level, but I don't want it to drop yet. So this number is adjustable, of course. You can put that down to 0, and then you'd get the same result as I wouldn't need to do this at all. It would just drop out of the sky immediately anyways. So the delay is the big part here. If you wanted to do some things for a delayed amount of time and then enter into the true fail-safe, then go from there. All right, well, that was it. It's a kind of a longer tip, I guess, but it took me a little bit to figure that out. I don't think I saw any videos on this, or it would have been easier. And I hope this helps you guys. I don't have a serial, a serial connection for my receiver. Maybe with that, things are a little simpler. I'm not sure. I know what I have, and I'm thinking other people might have the same similar setup. Again, thank you. I hope this helps.